To the right.
Recording in progress.
That's what the manual says.
I didn't write a chapter yet.
I didn't write it.
I didn't get to that chapter yet, so since I don't know, it's.
No, I remember when we were going through it, and that was a suggestion done by Terry, so.
Yes.
All right, 6 o'clock. That clock's wrong. Let's get this August 6th meeting, 6 p.m. going. Starting off, we have Experience Olympian Beyond 10-year destination master plan. Net Hits is here to discuss it.
Okay, I have items. These are the actual plans themselves. They weigh like, 10 pounds a piece. So, and yeah, that would be fantastic. So there is a book for each person on council. And there's also a summary document. So if you don't want to crack immediately into the 300 plus pages, I mean, I know you want to.
We'll wait for what to get up.
There is a little summary in there. Sorry, scanning like right to front. I think this is where they want me. Yes. Okay.
Just let me know when you want me to move the slides.
We'll have a Q&A on it in a few minutes.
So I think I have 10 to 20 minutes, so I'm going to talk super fast. My point in being here today, other than to bring these to you so that you can see what the heck we've been up to, is I want you to know why we did this in the first place, what it even means, and you can, if anybody wants some extra talking bags, there you go. And what we're going to be doing going forward and how the city of Yelm can participate. That's what I just said. So nobody enters into a project like this for no good reason, because it is an insane amount of work. And I think it's really important to know why we did this in the first place. So before I even got into my role in 2021, my predecessor back in 2016 ordered up what is called a DNext assessment. It is an industry standard destination measurement tool where they look at your destination across a whole host of variables. They say, and I'll show you what those variables are, I think, unless I had to cut them for time. They look at all of those variables and then give you a ranking. And then they also look at your community alignment and they give you a ranking because they say, if you are not aligned with your community, you're not going to do well as a destination, especially if you have some destination challenges. And in 2016, we were found to be weak as a destination and weak in terms of community alignment, which that's no good. That contract that my predecessor had with the company that produced the assessment also had a part 2, the follow-up assessment that said you need to do this again in 2021 and see if you moved the needle at all through the work that you did between 2016 and 2021. So I came in 2021, one of the first things was like, cool, there's a contract already here. We need to finish this. So we went through that assessment process again. The important thing to note is who was doing that assessment. The findings are not the result of what the consultant said, and the findings are not the result of what staff said. This is what you all said. This is the feedback of our stakeholders and the people who live and work in Thurston County. It's not from visitors. So it was a bummer to walk into that when I first started going, oh, dang it, we didn't do so well here. But I honestly wasn't super surprised because there wasn't a plan in place in 2016 to resolve whatever the findings were at that time. Does that make sense? So if you don't have a plan to fix the problem and you already said you don't have your community aligned and your stakeholders throughout the county aren't feeling like you're working together, it's probably not going to change. So one of the recommendations out of the 2021 findings was you got to get a plan together to actually do something. And you need to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table to help create a plan to move forward. We also were coming out of COVID. We were still down a lot of hospitality jobs. And so we knew we needed to figure out a pathway to helping rebuild the economy behind hospitality and tourism while also looking at whatever those issues were when we were assessed. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's the why. You can go ahead and move forward. These are the variables, by the way, that they measured the destination on, that we scored poorly on. And I can, you have this now, so you can share it afterward. You can go ahead and move forward. And these were the community alignment variables that we scored poorly on. So we created the destination master plan as a way to say, we're going to force a framework to give everybody a seat at the table so that we can address these community alignment variables so that we can start working on how do we fix those destination variables. You can go ahead and advance. There was a grant that came available in 2022. I said, hey, board, there's a grant available for $100,000. Should I write it? They said, yes, you should. We probably won't get it, but let's try it. Surprisingly, we were awarded the grant. We put in an extra $78,000 of our own private funds, and we said, let's make this thing happen. So we started the planning process. The important thing to note is in the plan itself, you're going to see, and we'll talk about it in the presentation, there are 29 recommendations or priorities that floated up. They are going to represent county-wide priorities. We know full well they're going to be different from the city of Yelm's individual priorities. We identified in the plan by working with the city of Yelm what your own priorities are, but these are kind of the macro level. Those findings are not meant to tell you what to do. How we want you to use them is, let's say you've got a master plan of your own for your property and your community. And you say, you know what, I'd love to go after a curb grant to fund outdoor recreation. I'm just making something up. And if you go into the master plan, you say, hey, 1,000 people contributed to this countywide document, and they said, we want to see Yelm grow. We want to see parks and outdoor rec being supported. You can use this plan to support your grant applications. And then you can say, hey, VCB, you have to give me a letter of support for this because it's in your document. And I'll say, sure. So you have automatic partnership, and you should have some additional tools to leverage to help you go after funding to fund the projects that you've already identified are priorities for you. Does that make sense? Okay, go ahead. If you take nothing away from this presentation, this slide, it's ugly, but it's probably the most meaningful. It's why tourism even matters in the first place. I often will see in our smaller communities, I think maybe not a lack of understanding, but a confusion about the role of tourism in your community. People think tourism is just about vacations, and our town isn't a vacation destination. And that's really not what tourism is about. Tourism is about making sure that you maintain and have control of the quality of life that you want for your community. So what this slide tells you is if you have a place where people want to visit, then you're going to have a place where people want to live. You guys are all here, you want to live here. If you have a place where people want to live, then you're going to have a place where people want to work. If you have a place that people want to work, you're going to have a place that people will invest. If you have a place that people have invested in, of course, people want to visit. And it's a virtuous cycle. Where destinations get sideways is when they just say, this is just going to be a vacation community. And they're not talking to the people in their community and saying, what do you want? And you get out of sync. So does that all make sense? The other thing that's important to note is as a visitor bureau, we can only affect that telling people about visiting part. We can set the table because we're in the hospitality industry and invite you guys all to work with us, but you're going to be in charge of how do you determine what makes your community livable? You know, economic development councils, chambers of commerce, they're really going to be key players around here between that working piece and the investing piece. So we and our economic development experts within your jurisdiction itself. So there's a role for all of these organizations and entities around this kind of cycle. We just need to be one small part of it. So does that make sense? Okay, go ahead. So who was involved? We tried to have a steering committee that was super inclusive, as many people as you could. And I will tell you, we were told not to have more than 8. And I can tell you it is a lot easier to have fewer people. That said, I'm really glad that we had the folks in here that we did. Lynn from the city represented Yelm, and you know, she's amazing. She was at every monthly steering committee meeting and really was a good advocate for your community. Go ahead. This is the crazy amount of work that we did over the last year. I'm not going to read it to you, but it is nutty, and it is why it is called a destination master plan. Not only did we go through the whole public forums, visioning workshops, one-on-one, industry focus groups. We used AI to overlay every single published economic development, comprehensive transportation, mitigation, you name it, plan in place to distill what are the things that you guys have already identified as priorities, so we don't accidentally make a recommendation that's counter to it. So it truly is a master plan. And over 1,000 people participated in it. So here are the findings. Through that whole process, 29 issues and opportunities floated up every single time. We decided, we know we can't do 29 things, like at least not all at once, or if everything's important, nothing's important. That said, they were important to some people. A lot of people identified these things. So we wanted to capture them all. And the steering committee just decided rather than eliminating anything, they would put them into a phased approach for implementation.
It's a pretty cool picture. You don't see that image over the golf course.
They're in our shared image library, which are available to you at no charge. So these are the things that were determined to be initial implementation items. Again, this is at the county-wide level. We know it's going to be different for you guys, and it's going to be different for us. Each one of these items has a full chapter in that book. That's why it's so thick. And if you wanted me to tell you about it, I would need a lot more time than 10 to 20 minutes. But you have a cheat sheet and you have the full book. You can go to the next one. Phase 2, you'll find on this list. And then you can go to phase 3, which is this list. Now, my board met and they said, yep, this is really good. This makes sense for the entire county. But as a visitor bureau, first of all, we can't tell people what to do, like equestrian tourism. I can't tell Enjoy and Tenino Ranch, I can't tell them what to do. That said, there are certain things, like we can support a lot of these things, but there are certain things that we can lead. And if you advance, we'll look at those. So my board met and they said of this list, which this list represents what the steering committee said, yep, these are things that the Experience Olympia and Beyond can lead. They said, what we want you to focus on first are the ones in orange. So coming out of the gates in 2025, we will be focusing on connectivity, outdoor recreation, sports events and facilities, tourism funding, tribal relationships, and tourism. Connectivity pertains to several things. It talks about being connected to our communities. It talks about connecting visitors and residents to resources. It speaks to way showing, way finding, outdoor recreation, low-hanging fruit. We have a lot of opportunity that is not fully developed at this point. We have several communities that are trying to develop trail systems that probably could use additional funding support. They could certainly use promotional support when the time is right. Same thing with sports events and facilities. Tourism funding pertains not only to our organization, it talks about supporting statewide tourism, and it talks about how do we be a supporting partner for if you're somebody who has a project that's been identified in here, and kind of like that example that I provided, how do we lend our support so that you're able to get more funding to move the projects forward that we've also captured in the DMP. And tribal relationships and tourism is a no-brainer. We've really been working on this a lot. We have Hanford McLeod on our board. We have a great working relationship with the Nisqually tribe. We've got a great working relationship with Squaxin tribe, and we don't have as many inroads with the Chehalis tribe. So we're trying to figure that out and make it happen because we know it's really important. And I think I'm almost done. Or maybe I am done. All right, here we go. One more. So these are the other key takeaways that the board said get working on. It doesn't mean they're going to happen this year, but they're coming very soon. We're probably going to be looking at in the next couple of years creating a C3 because we know a lot of the things identified in there I can't fund through, even the ones that are under our purview, I can't fund them through tourism promotion area assessments or lodging taxes. Those have restricted use. So if we wanted to do interpretive signage or what have you, kind of educational program or public safety or whatnot. I can't use those dollars for that. So we're going to have to figure out new sources to get those funds, and we can't keep pulling the same levers of lodging tax and think we're going to get a different result. So we need new options. There's a lot of stuff coming down around statewide tourism funding, which is a whole other conversation, which is exciting. We're working with IANTA, the American Indian and Alaska Native Tourism Association, trying to bring them out to work with our tribes and us next year. Coming out and doing more of this so that we're partnership building with all of our communities, communicating more, and just giving you guys more opportunity to have a seat at the table and tell us what the heck you want us to do. And I think now it might be the questions slide. No, oh, dang it. Trying, guys, I'm really trying. So what's coming next is we will reconvene in Q1 of 2025. We're going to re-invite our steering committee back, but we're going to roll it into a task force. And then we're going to invite any other interested parties to be a part of that task force. I think we burnt out our steering committee. There's no doubt about that. They did a lot, but there's a lot of people in the community that have voices that can contribute to this process as well. And we want to invite them into that. So that will be quarterly. That's about it. We've identified some folks that can serve as leads. We've certainly identified a lot of supporting roles, but we're gonna just start moving forward with anybody who wants to get work done. My plan is to not have a plan. My plan is to have some things that get done. So one item at a time. Maybe that's the question slide next. Please let it be. Yes.
Listening to the whole thing, and one of the things that I'm intrigued about is we talked about, and you even had it on the thing that said visit, live, work, all that, is the branding. When it comes and to get the communities to kind of work together. Thurston County, what is the brand that Thurston County is trying to say, this is us? And then how are the cities aligned with that kind of concept?
So the countywide brand right now is Experience Olympia and Beyond. We also created 2021 or 2022 when I came in, based on what I call Festivus, where I went around and had all of the conversations with everybody, and everybody said, excuse me, this branding doesn't have my name. We said,
Beyond.
You're the Beyond, and right, and I get it. So what we did at that time was we created a series of co-brands, which we made a whole host of assets for Experience Yelm, Experience Tenino, et cetera, for everybody to use. I'm not convinced that's the top solution. I think every time I go and I have a conversation with the community, this is a question that's asked, and I think it's a good question. So I think we have to have, I think we are heading towards we need to have that conversation.
Oh, and I guess to kind of clarify, it's like down in California, there's certain counties that this is wine country. They work so hard on making sure that as a whole, that's what they're known for. In Eastern Washington, there's an area that's wine country. There's agriculture country, all those kinds of things. Yeah. And I'm wondering, for Thurston County, do they have that kind of, is there some kind of identity that then we can start working off of? Or is that like one of the first things that we need to try to do?
Well, so kind of going to the examples, most DMOs do hang their hat on an anchor community. So for example, when you look at, let's see, Bellingham, visit Bellingham, that's Whatcom County. When you look at Travel Tacoma, that's Pierce County. When you look at most DMOs, they will have an anchor community. They will tie themselves to an industry or a sector, right? So there's where you get some exceptions is where they're very successful, like SlowCal, I think is kind of what you're getting at. Like SlowCal is San Luis Obispo, and it's a collection of communities, but they're identifying kind of their quality of life. It's a very cool name, right? And it has cachet and it speaks to a vibe. I mean, it works. Most people don't travel to counties. When you're planning a vacation, you very rarely go, God, I can't wait to get to
Cachet.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't happen. So the rub that you're getting at is the right way to ask the question. But it's the hardest one to answer for Thurston County because all of our communities are so distinct and our personalities and politics and where we hang our hats and where we, put our head at night is very different. So I think when that big brand conversation comes back, I think we probably have to lean into the same approach that Slow Cal did and have it not be an industry, because there's this tendency to want to just say, well, we're beer, we're the Olympia Brewing Company, and that's who we are. But that doesn't really work for Yelm, and it doesn't really work for Rainier. And so I think the thing that I see that is common among all of our communities is everybody is real independent. And they're like, this is who we are. And I don't know how you articulate that through a brand, but I think we're going to have to lean into probably culture like Slow Cal did, and not so much into an industry sector like ag or beer or wine, just because each of our communities is so different. They're not going to have it. I wasn't here for the rebrand, but I get why they did it the way they did. But I also understand why people feel the way they do. And so I think one of the next things that we need to move to is probably brand testing. It's not in our upcoming budget, but I think we probably have to move towards that so that we can say, here's how a successful brand works. We need to figure out how are we doing there. There's the how is it working for visitors, but then there's the how is it working for locals. And then we're going to have some honest conversations.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the answer.
Cool. And I don't know if it's taken by any other communities, but my Airbnb here in town, most of my people from all over the world are going to Mount Rainier. So I don't know if we'd be like gateway to Mount Rainier or something.
I have said from the time I came here, because my big thing before I moved here was mountaineering. And I was always went from mountaineering to horses, by the way. It's a lot easier. But I've always said the missed opportunity for Yelm is being the gateway to Rainier, because mountaineers, day hikers, international travelers, they're all clogging at these other entrances. And especially, I mean, I'm with you 100%. I was just talking to somebody who's maybe buying a property in this area about how we could be better positioning Yelm.
I like that name. It's Trevor, you coined that, the gateway to Yelm. I did.
Now, there are certainly communities that will probably,
I'm sure Pat would have something to say or something.
yeah, but they can say it.
No, it's
I
been
think
thrown out there
it's a
before.
big opportunity.
Yeah, it's a good name. Good.
Yeah, I mean, I had people from Germany, Australia, all sorts from come see Mount Rainier.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Another question I have is on one of your slides, the one that was talking about the first priority, something like that. You had the very first thing was aviation, something. I'm curious on what was that all about?
planning.
We were trying to create an international airport here in Thurston.
Actually, it was not that. It was definitely.
Like aviation planning.
Yeah, so there's conversation about regional air service at the current airport, exactly. I almost said Pangborn, I moved here from Wenatchee, sorry. There is conversation about what should happen about should that regional air service be restored so that there's more than private Cessnas going in and out. You look at small regional airports like in Wenatchee, like Pangborn that have like 2 daily flights with Horizon. It's hugely impactful and it's very low impact on the community. Should that happen? That's a conversation. The conversation is not about the new green field. We're not touching that with a 10-foot.
Okay, I appreciate that. I was like, are we looking at doing aerial tours or?
Aerial tours. I wish we had any kind of tours, because what we are missing are tour providers. There are so many small business opportunities. We have these bike trails, but the only place that has bike rentals, I think, is in Yelm. We don't, which is great. So we send people there, but we have all of these hiking trails. We don't have guided hiking services. We don't have outfitters on the gateway to Yelm. There's a bunch of guided experience opportunities. We don't have a guided kayaking service. We're asking people to get out on Puget Sound without a guide. This is not good. There's a lot of small business incubator opportunities that I think could come up, some cross-pollination with our communities or the EDC or chambers or whatnot. But I will talk about it all day if somebody lets me.
Any final questions here, council?
Yeah, I got one more. So sports events and facilities, something that's come up with some of our youth groups is we don't have enough fields in this area. We'd like to see more ballparks and more football fields because when they have, especially when they have their big tournaments and stuff, it's real crammed. So
We would truly love to see more fields, more facilities. I would probably give my left arm to have a covered facility.
right.
Because where we struggle is to book tournaments and events because most of our facilities are booked with local use. And so, you want to make sure that you have that priority for your local use, but you also want the economic impact of people coming in and staying at your properties and supporting restaurants and retail and so forth. Because those people turn into the people who are going to live here and are going to pay your property tax. By the way, how many of you guys were born in Yelm? So congratulations, you're all here because of tourism. Because you find a place.
Now,
I was gonna say, because you're at the county level, something to maybe consider to help you out with fields is you have the World Cup is going to be coming through Seattle, the primary, that maybe if you find a way to tie in, I'm sure we can probably get some field, wonderful spaces that could even be competition size that.
So I was just on a call day before yesterday. So I'm the president of the Washington State Destination Marketing Organization Association. And I'm also on the state of Washington Tourism Board. So we are talking about World Cup up one side and down the other. And what we're finding is that very little has been confirmed yet from the World Cup. The things that have been confirmed are that we're not allowed to say FIFA. You're not allowed to say you are having a FIFA viewing party or a World Cup viewing party. They are actively engaging in lawsuits. So the only things that we know right now are the things that we cannot do. However, things that we know are that obviously there are the games themselves, but then there are also going to be the training areas. And until we know what the training areas are and what the games are going to actually be, what the schedule will be, and what we are allowed to do, we're treading really carefully, and we want to manage expectations that we don't overpromise. So what's happening, what we're hearing from folks in Paris right now is that everybody thought, if we have the Olympics here, we're going to sell out. They had all these properties that had rooms, and they're not having the visitation that they had anticipated. And so I want us to just be sure, like, if there are opportunities with World Cup, that we are fully apprised of them so that we can do our best work by our communities. But I want to make sure that we don't overextend ourselves thinking that something's going to happen that we don't deliver on. But I want them to come here.
And I appreciate that thoughtfulness because there's a lot of times that communities are not that thoughtful. I'd rather see somebody say, hey, we don't have enough space than we promise too much.
Yeah, I want people to be excited, but what I don't want people to do is, if you're a small property, to go and buy 12 new TVs to accommodate the people that are going to come, that they don't come, and all of a sudden, what are you doing with your TVs? It's a weird example, but we just want to be careful.
We can build some
House.
World Cup soccer fields, so.
Yeah, just World Cup, just don't say FIFA. I literally had no idea. So we're just gonna, I will say the other thing on World Cup, I was talking to Mark Everton, who is the CEO of Seattle Southside, and it was on this subject, and they have put together kind of a chain of communication on World Cup for Seattle South Side, for as information comes down that they can get it out into their community. We're going to try to roll that up into state of Washington tourism and certainly back down into our community so we can replicate that and make sure we don't accidentally step on something. We don't want to because we want to benefit, not get in trouble.
Any other questions? Annette, thank you very much for that comprehensive presentation. Thank you for the materials. Council, if you have any questions, I think your contact is on here, and if not, we'll get them.
It should be. It is on the presentation, and if you want, or if you have other folks that you want that to go to, it's also on our website, and I will follow up with a link to that. So they can do a digital download, and then the single sheet document is also on it.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good evening.
Me too.
All right, moving on. Do we have a Veterans Memorial presentation? Cody, talk about this.
So in front of you and shortly on the screen, there's a Veterans Memorial Park. So we got a concept of the Veterans Memorial Park done by BCRA. What we've been doing over the last couple of months is kind of fleshing out the concept and what we want to look at. So on here, this is that Mill Road property this council had purchased. And you can see it incorporates Mill Road property along with the pond next to the Mill Road property. On here, there's a little legend. Again, this is a concept, right? This is all we're going to use this for is to go out and get money, get backing behind this to start developing out the concept and actually going to design and constructing. So in the concept, you'll notice that the road is realigned. So you can see Mill Road realigned, added its turn lane in there. You can tell a big one too. And then it's okay. So, and then you'll see there's 40 parking spots. So I put the number of parking stalls like we fit. Obviously it can be adjusted if we need more. There's also that turnaround. That main turnaround is for older or disabled folks that maybe need to get access directly to the pathway. So it'll pull up to it and then they can lower out a wheelchair or, you know, anything that someone may need to access to take you directly to the area in the middle instead of having to get out and park a car and drive around. Hey, there we go. The other thing you'll notice is too, so one thing I wanted to do ahead of time is I wanted like a memorial entryway. So when you walk in, there's every branch of service, all 6 branches, and you're like, 6 branches, but there's only 5. Well, we added the Space Force because obviously at some point you're going to have a need for recognition of Space Force and some of their accomplishments. So we wanted to get ahead of the game and put a Space Force here. So you'll have all 6 branches along with an American flag. So that'll be there. Each of the branches will have a pillar on the back. So if you look at the back end facing 507, they're going to be granite statues. Again, this is all conceptual, so just envision with me here. Granite statues with the logo of the branch on the back facing the road lit up. So as you drive by, you'll see every logo, every branch as you drive by, which will really be eye-catching. On the front end will be kind of the history of the branch. So when the branch was created, how it was created, the purpose of it, what started it. So it'll be a kind of description of the branch to teach you a little bit about how that branch got created. You come over to number 3. 3 is the restroom. This, I think, needs to have a restroom because of when we have memorial events, veterans events here, there's a lot of people that need a restroom and you're there for maybe 2-3 hours. This is a spot where I would really recommend doing a restroom versus maybe some other sites where we've chosen not to do one in the past. 4 will be an informational kiosk. So that kiosk, my vision there, or the vision we have there, is to show you the whole pathway so you don't have to go somewhere you don't want to go. If you're like, hey, I just want to go look at the World War I and II memorial, you can look at the kiosk and find out where that is and walk right down there. And there'll be some information in that kiosk too. We haven't decided what that is. Then you go into what I call a reflection walk. You'll have there's 3 pillars on each of these. So 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 10 does not, but all the other ones have 3 giant granite statue monuments. The middle one will have the war and description of the war. So you'll be able to see how the war started, what was the cause of it, what's America's involvement. It'll give you a little history of it. You'll learn something. And then the other 2 pillars will have people that served in this area on that war. So living dead, that it'll have that are KIA or still alive. It'll be on these memorials. One thing I wanted to do that's not done normally is you have just the people that were either killed in action or missing in action. But what about all the people that served and made it home and with their families and they, died a long, happy life? No one may not remember that they're in the war when they come here. So I want everyone that had served in this area to be on those. That's why I'm putting 2 pillars up. So if your great granddad served in World War One, he could put his name up there and his name would be on there, even though he maybe died, made it home safe, had a family and died later, his name would still be on there. And it would say he wasn't killed in action or missing in action. Whereas if you were, we could still put that on there and you were killed or dead in action. And the wars on here are I just picked out some conflicts. We're obviously going to flush this out. But one thing also I wanted to do, you always see these big memorials for, World War I or II or Vietnam. One thing we didn't have, or I never see, is like the smaller conflicts. There's a lot of conflicts that happen that aren't wars, right? And people maybe pass in them or are involved in them and they don't get recognized. You have the conflicts in Herzegovina, Bosnia, you have conflicts of Grenada. Those things happen and people served and people died in them, but no one remembers or maybe doesn't pay as much attention because they're not actual wars. So there's number 10 would be those smaller conflicts. So it'd have a description of some of those and people that maybe didn't serve in a conflict directly or were involved in one of these smaller conflicts, they would be recognized too. And the idea would be you'd walk around one side of this path and you would see the one list of wars. And when you come on the other side, you'll see the other list. You'll also see we put a sidewalk in on Mill Road and there'll be a crosswalk that connects directly across on Mill Road to Cochrane Park. So this could also be during times of that overflow parking. The one thing you don't see on here that I've added in the last couple of days that I've decided would be beneficial is that number 10, where the smaller conflicts, the sidewalk ends there, that sidewalk will actually connect to the sidewalk that comes in front of Ridgeline. So you'll have a walking path sidewalk from that development down here all the way over. So you can walk on sidewalks from Ridgeline through here without having to go through neighborhoods. So we did add that. There is not enough room, we think, in that front part on the right of way to add a sidewalk because of that Mill Lake there, or Mill Pond. The one thing is ecology and health are they don't want you to mess with the water if you don't have to or do anything with it. It'd be really hard. We'll have to go through a lot of logistics to do anything with that pond. So it's easier just to go around the outside of the pond. And you'll notice this giant tree colonnade on the top that we're not touching. There's a lot of oak trees in there and white oaks are protected. So it's easier for us to just avoid that than it is for us to try to mitigate that and put those oaks somewhere else. So that tree colonnade will be there. There is chances we can put pathways through there of some sort, but that's still got to be flushed out. Again, this is just the concept to start going for money. The price estimate to do this all correctly, and I think one of the things about this is it's something we don't want to skimp on as a city. I want to make sure we can do everything. I don't want to do a half a marble wall or one granite wall. I want to make sure it's all done. So we're looking at a $3 to $3.5 million price tag for everything. That includes the road realignment. The goal is to get this all grant funded. So me and my team are going to be over the next 4 or 5 months just finding every dollar we can to pay for this, to get this hopefully designed next year and then starting construction in 26. And that's a non-optimistic timeline. Optimistic timeline would be started next year and constructed next year. I think by the end of 26, we'll be up and running. Maybe sooner, but that's what I'll give you.
Questions, comments?
Well, first off, I feel like there's been such a remarkable job done already with all the parks and recreation. The fact that the road realignment will be included in that grant thing is huge. That's a heck of a sharp corner. So I think it's beautiful. I love the idea of it. I love the design of it. And even mentioning the trees that I'm like, yeah, that's why I was wondering why I could see those trees on the border there. And I'm like, those are all oak, correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of oak trees that we'll have to keep saying we won't be able to rip down. So
that's why I was just like, wow, what are they gonna do with all those trees there? But you spoke on it. So I think it's a remarkable plan. And with the grant funding, is there, because it's a specific theme of like a Veterans Memorial, is there options? Are there more options or less options? What are we looking at?
I think the options are more narrow what you can get, but I think they're more available.
Okay.
So one thing, people can argue that a park may not be useful, but I don't know anyone in their right mind that would argue that you shouldn't build a Veterans Memorial. Maybe there is someone out there, I'm sure there is, but it's a very easy thing to get people to back up on all levels of legislature and everything. So I think that's beneficial, is that it's easy to get people to back this. And there's a lot of people passionate about this, even in our local community. So I think it's going to be easier to find money, even though there's less pots of money to pull from.
So we're not allowed to touch the pond. It'd be nice if we could do something to ensure there was water there all the time. It's just a dry mud bed.
Yeah, 100%. We're going to work on, I would love that. I would love to turn it into a giant fountain. That's beautiful. because of its use, we have to be very specific. I wanted to, in the conceptual, not show anything. If we can do something, we 100% will. But it is going to be a long process with us in Department of Ecology to figure out what we can do that keeps the balance of what it is. I agree, a fountain would be amazing there, but I didn't want to promise something I wasn't sure I could
So
do.
it's really just a retention area?
Yeah, it is a retention for these neighborhoods. There's pipes that actually run under the grass that drop in this area, and it holds retention from the road as well. So.
Again, speaking about that pond, what is the possibility of having it turned into a reclamation pond like we have at Cochrane?
It would be very similar, like whatever we do, we're gonna have to get approval for it. Since it is used for normal water and normal filtration, I would probably assume that they don't want reclaimed water going in there because it already used for stormwater runoff. And I don't know, that would be something we're gonna try everything we can to do something with it. And that we're looking at all options, reclaim water, a fountain, have it permanent retention, underground, whatever we can do to make it work and still be cool looking would be awesome, but I don't want to, I'm not sure we can promise anything because we have to go through another agency to do it, so.
I do want to stress it is, like Cody was saying, it is going to be grant funded. So if we can't find grant funding, we probably won't be able to move forward with this project. It's too big of a price tag for us just to handle out of our general budget. But like Cody said, I think we are able to get some in grant funding for it. And I think it's a worthwhile project to do so. So hopefully council agrees and we'll figure that out when we get to that point. Anything else, Cody?
I agree, great plan.
All right. Thank you, Cody, but don't go too far because we got the activated alleyway discussion.
Yes, so it'll take a second to, there's your activated alleyway. So,
Was that request by council?
Councilmember Crossman requested we talk about this. So we did bring it up to Public Services Committee, and we had talked about this, but I wanted to show everyone kind of where we're at. So right now we're in the right-of-way acquisition phase. So the alleyway has portions we need to buy X amount of feet from the people that own parts of that alleyway. We own the 10-foot easement through the middle of it. So the city, the public owns that. So we don't have to do anything with that. Here we go. But there's more than that. So if we want to put food trucks, we want to put benches, we have to get that from these property owners. So we're in what's called a right-of-way acquisition phase. So we're talking with the property owners of all the properties that are affected to buy the right-of-way from them. And we have to pay fair market value. Every property owner we've talked to that is impacted, that's impacted by losing part of the property has been 100% on board for this. Even so that the new owners of the FUB building right across from us have talked about, they want to even incorporate the middle alley that kind of goes through the fence that connects to the sidewalk. They want to incorporate that too into the alleyway. So we actually, I saw the concept of that. And so the idea of that would be our seating area. So we'd put benches through there and there'd be an archway coming in and we'd have the name of whatever the alleyway we decide to name it. That would be your main entrance area for the public. You'd walk from the sidewalk, see it from the street into this alleyway.
So they like the idea so much, they wanted to incorporate their own property.
They want us to, yes, they are willing to let us they're willing to sell us the property to incorporate it. They don't have to, but they're willing to sell us property to incorporate it into this idea.
That would be very remarkable. It just would make so much sense for access to the front and the backside of all these businesses.
Yeah, and I think the benefit too is you have all the seating that would be there, so they could use it. Other people, like they come into farmers market and get a food truck, has a place to sit down, right? That was one thing we were struggling with, is where exactly are we going to put seating? So that was awesome. So this is looking down behind City Hall here. The other thing we're working on is dressing up the back of City Hall. So there's gonna be some new things coming to you guys in the future about this backside of City Hall here to dress it up with this activated alleyway. Habitat Humanity's on board. Like I said, every person we've talked to that's affected by this in terms of we're buying property from them and the alleyway will be in front of has been on board with this. Now, once we've gotten the right-of-way purchase, then we know the project was going to happen. Then we'll talk to the owners that maybe don't have to give up property or not affected by this, but they'll still affect. So I've already talked to Masonry Cafe. They don't have to give up any property. They're not losing anything. It does benefit them, but they were concerned about, hey, am I going to lose parking? No, you're not losing parking. This ends right by Consolidated Communications. The other owner, White Horse Tavern is another one. It ends right in front of his property. It doesn't even take into his property. So he doesn't lose any property with this being constructed. Then the other one you have at the very end is Tim's Pharmacy, and they're excited about the project as well. So if you slide down a little bit, look at the other vision. That's the idea of farmer's market with this. So those are looking the other way behind Fair Game, Salon Nouveau, and this is what we have here with tables and seating. We've talked to the owner of Fair Game, Sonia. Great lady. She has visions for this place. I hope she does those visions, but she's had those visions for a long time and hasn't done a whole lot. So we're still she's willing to sell us the back area, and we're gonna put in seating back there as well. And that would be if her or maybe a future person opens up something there, there's outdoor seating for them along with food trucks. If you go down one more, you'll kind of see the overview of the whole thing. So the only thing you won't see on here is the alleyway in between the FUB building and Habitat for Humanity. And that, because that's just a new thing that happened recently where we started talking about it.
So you're saying Habitat for Humanity had the same idea about the FUB building, very similar?
Yeah, they don't own that area. It's owned by the FUB building, but they're excited to get a rock wall up because right now all the runoff runs into their property. So when it rains, their back of the property floods. So with this, we're actually gonna build a retention wall, and that water will remain in the alleyway and drain to an actual drain. So it'll help them out quite a bit with flooding issues.
Well, the other side of Habitat, which is like a makeshift parking lot.
Yeah, so Habitat has a plan to expand. They said they're about 3 years out from that. This will only help their plan. So the only thing they're gonna run into is they'll have to have people back in to drop off stuff, which they said is not a problem. And then they can still go out of the alleyway on the corner there. So the alleyway from this, you can see the 2 receptacles on the bottom, on the right side here. That'll be the end of drivable access for them. So they'll still be able to pull out the other way, which is great. And then you have Cantoneer lighting. That's those overhead lights that are white like we had at the Jazz Fest. That lighting will be strung all the way down the main alleyway and that area out here. So even nighttime, you could go out and have a nice bite to eat. That'd be great. Yeah. So this is kind of where we're at. Again, this is this is 30% plans. We're held at 30% plans until right of way is done. Once right of way is done, then we will start the actual full-on set plans. We'll go to the owners around there and get more input from them.
When can we expect the right of way to be finished?
Right away, it all depends on how easy people are to negotiate. Because everyone is so positive about this, I would imagine right away will be done by the end of this year, acquisition wise. But there is negotiation that take place. I like Habitat, because we're taking so much of Habitat's property and they're losing some access, those negotiations may take a little longer. So we're hoping by the end of this year, and then we can start moving forward with plans after that, full-on plans.
Yeah, I think there's just so much sense that's being made right now from the alleyway to access to the sidewalk of the main road. There's so many access points now. If the Fun Restaurant is absolutely in on that, you're looking at 3 different access points to the main road sidewalk, walkable access. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, when the owner came in, they wanted to do some differences with their building. They wanted to do some upgrades to their building. And I was like, hey, would you be interested in talking about this? And they were really open to it. And as soon as he mentioned, yeah, we'd be even doing that, maybe you could put a mural up or something. I was like, that's awesome. I would love. And so they were totally on board with us purchasing that section, which I thought was awesome. I think that'll really culminate this whole project and give you access to the main street, especially with an archway that names the alley too of something. So I haven't come up with a name yet, but you guys will have input on that when we figure that out.
Fireworks and stuff coming in.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Side note, what are they doing with the boarded up corner of the masonry bakery there, that corner?
Yeah, so last we heard, the owner got the money, the insurance money, and she wanted to do some upgrades, but it wasn't enough to do the upgrades. So she was in talks with Shelley, the owner of Masonry, to do something with it, and Shelley's kind of just pushing her to get it rebuilt. So that's the last I heard, but I don't know anything past that. Everything else is rumor.
There's no time limits that we put, so.
No, as long as it's structurally okay and no one's doing anything, we once it gets to a point, we don't have much input on it, what they do with their property.
Director Colt,
Yeah.
you talked about the food trucks. Is this the concept with this activated alleyway that when the light pole gets put in, that's what they're going to be plugging into?
Yep. So all of the light poles will have power. That's one thing we said. We want every light pole to have power so someone could plug in. If you have maybe you're out there doing street corn or something, you need somewhere to plug in. There's a hose bib and there's a plug-in right there and you can do both of them. So you have both of those accesses all through that alleyway. We want to make it as user-friendly as possible for things like food trucks, for corn vendors, anything like that.
So you're talking about electric and water?
Yes, there will be hose bibs on the back of this building that there will be access. That's one thing the farmers market said they needed was access to water and access to power.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so you will have both of those access on the back end for farmers markets for anything. If there's a street market, hey, you got power and you got water. So.
I did hear a lot of people talking about the beautiful lighting at the Jazz Festival and like, why couldn't we put that in the park permanently? So those are the kind of lights you're talking
Yeah,
about.
the Cantonier lights, yes. That'll be the whole thing strung through there. The nice thing about them is they're super low voltage, and they're easy to replace and fix when they break, and they last for a long time and they look nice. So yeah, those will be all strung through there and they'll be high enough that trucks can drive under it when like you have a food truck coming.
Could do something better in the park for lighting. That would be pretty. It was beautiful.
And the Jazz Fest was very beautiful. Yes, I agree.
Another question for one of the things that was brought up was maybe like a sound system kind of put into there so that there'd be, the capability of having music, or like when the farmer's market or whatever's happening there, people can hear what's going on. Is that a capability to do, or is that something that we can't do because of all the various businesses will want to have their own stuff?
I think there's the opportunity because you have powered all those poles. So like when farmers market comes in, there's nothing that says they can't plug in speakers to every fifth pole and Bluetooth them. 100%. I wouldn't, like you said, I wouldn't recommend it's a year round thing where you're, playing, music year round and the businesses are going insane because you played, Jingle Bells 48 times in a row. But it is something where definitely when a vendor comes in, it should be very easy for them to kind of string that together.
All right. And plus, just a thing to remind everyone here too, because there is a pattern that you'll see if your city is well kept and landscaped and organized and buildings are well maintained, you will see less traffic of transient homeless people.
Broken windows too.
And then there's less chance of vandalism. There's less chance, because when you keep something really nice like this and pristine, you're going to see a difference of, probably less people parking their cars in places. So, you can't even park car anyway. Yeah, just something to keep in mind, because if you have issues with vandalism and people, this will help fix that.
And yeah, we are taking some hints from they have streets that they close down. So Leavenworth, every day they have delivery from 6 to 10. And then after 10, streets are closed down, 6 a.m. to 10 in the morning. Streets are closed down for only pedestrian traffic. So trucks can't go through. So there's stuff like that we're taking. They have garbage cans that self-compact. So that way they can hold more trash and they need less attention. So they'll, as people fill them up, they'll pack the garbage down automatically inside the trash can. And maybe someone has to come by once every 6 hours instead of once every hour when there's a big event going on. So there's people that have done this right. So it's not like we're reinventing a wheel. We're going to steal ideas as much as we can or borrow ideas.
The best elements of everything.
100%. So that's our goal, is that we want this to be something that's perfect. And every day it gets a little bit better, the ideas behind it. And as we move along, you guys, there'll be lots of input in the process. This will be at the August 14th meeting. They're the town hall. People can give input on it. And we're only in 30% plan, so there's still a lot of room to change or adjust things if we need to. So if something, if you have an idea, we've already moved, one of those trash cans has already been moved. Those enclosures, because one of the businesses like, hey, this enclosure doesn't look good here, let's move it here. So even these plans have already been adjusted a little bit, that's the whole idea, is what works best for everyone. That's what we want to have happen.
And the conversation, I'm sorry. The conversation for having cars going through there, that's a dead conversation, right? We're not doing that at all.
So yeah, the idea of cars like actively going through there is not what an alleyway is for. If we wanted to do that, we probably wouldn't do an activated alleyway, right? You would do something different. An activated alleyway, very similar to how Leavenworth does it, is there's delivery trucks that go in, they do their deliveries in the morning, or garbage trucks that come in, do their stuff, and they all know it because it's been ingrained in their head. If they don't get there by 10, you're not going in there at all. And the road's all shut down. And that's not normal traffic. It's just the delivery trucks going through it. So if people have done it, it just becomes a learning experience for some people. Like, okay, I have to get my delivery before 10. That's okay. They do it everywhere else. They do it other places. So we're pretty versatile in Yelm. We can
Train the vendors.
Yeah, we can do it.
Good.
Stephanie, a question, comment?
Well, so just when you mentioned water, I
like access, but not like a hose that random people can turn on and off at any given time? That may be a silly question, but
You are told.
Free spigot.
right, like I just need a drink, or.
So there might be a water fountain there, but for that kind of access, yeah, it would be, we have right now, our water requires a key to use. So we provide whoever the vendor is, hey, here, like just like we do the community center, here's your key, just return it when you're done. And then so they could access water, but you'd have to have that key to turn on the water. You wouldn't just be able to.
Not just a garden hose sitting out there ready for anybody to just.
That wasn't the point. That is a good question though, because some people, they do that and then someone just leaves it on and
You just described.
water bill, yeah.
Whatever you need.
Any last questions? Go ahead.
You brought up the drinking fountain. In reference to the drinking fountain will be one that is not just only a drinking fountain, but also one that people can use to fill up a water bottle.
Yeah, so almost all, yes, 100%. Just like we have at Cochrane Park, it'll be a drinking fountain water bottle dispenser.
Appreciate it.
I can get like 3/4 full with that angle,
Any other questions before we move on? All right, thank you, Cody. We have a brief presentation regarding the 640 acres consulting and real estate updates. Todd, you want to talk about what's going on?
Yep, let's keep the good news going. So just a brief update of what we've been doing. Cody and I have weekly meetings with Kidder Matthews, representative from Kidder Matthews. They've been doing tons of work behind the scenes, kind of looking at the feasibility of the property, looking at the environmental impacts of the property, what's buildable land, what's not buildable land, working with the landowners around the 640 acre property to find out interest in building as well or selling as well, or at least able to obtain right of way through those properties to get to our 640. So we hope that on the 27th of this month, we should be able to come to you with a list of some options. And the options will look at advantages and disadvantages of every option proposed. Including one of the options is do nothing, just sit on it, sit the property. So of course, that will be up to council to decide what they want to do. So there are a couple options that we've asked them to kind of explore a little bit more in depth so that it is truly an option. And so we're working on some of those right now to try to flush those out. And those have to do with the surrounding properties. And so because you're not just dealing with one person with those surrounding properties, you're dealing with like a board that controls those properties. The timing could be challenged to be completely, wrapped up by the end of this month as far as if those are viable options, but we'll keep everybody up to date. We don't want to bring it as an option unless we know it's an absolute viable option for us. We don't want to, sell a great option and then at the end of the day go, hey, by the way, that's not going to work. Sorry about that. Let's go to option B. So anyway, like I said, we've had great conversations with them. We meet for at least an hour every week and go over the different complexities of the land and as far as, moving forward with bringing the best options forward to the council to look at. So I feel really optimistic that you're going to be presented with some decisions, maybe some tough decisions or not. Like again, if you don't want to do anything, you don't have to do anything, but at least just kind of options for the city on what is the best option for the city, right, to move forward with this property. And so I don't want to go into too much detail because again, we're still flushing out some of these and they may change before the 27th. But I will say we've had some great conversations with neighboring properties that have expressed an interest in working with us. It's just, what does that look like, right? What does that mean? So stand by. Just wanted to give you an update that we'll be able to come forward with those things. So you've seen on the website, we put a projects page up on our website. We are going to have a lot of these projects at the next Wednesday's open house. We'll have the 640 area set up. We'll have a map of where that is. And so people have an idea of what it is. So I will be behind that table. I think we're all going to be spread out behind a few tables. So I will be behind that table as well to take input. I've talked to a couple of folks that have come in and met with us that have expressed some interest in what to do with that. One of the pieces though that One of the pieces though that I wanted to kind of talk about, Cody and I have talked about this a couple times lately, is when it comes down to specifically what is going to be in this master plan, as far as what does that exactly look like? Because it is zoned as a master plan, council will have ultimate say in everything that goes up there. So Kidder Matthews is not going to tell us what goes up there or what could go up there. That will literally be right here. So once we decide if we're going to market the property, if we're going to try to market the entire 1,250 or do nothing with it, before anything ever goes up there, you will have input, and the council and the community will have input as to what the ultimate master plan looks like. So I don't want to get hung up with, we don't need to know by August 27th what is going to be in this master plan, because it's zoned as a master plan. We have the flexibility to adjust that master plan. Is that right, Cody? So there will be a great opportunity to sit down. Let's say we market it to a developer. We interview the developer before we decide to sell it to a developer. We interview that developer and we say, this is what is of interest to us. This is what is of interest to our community, whether it's parks, whether it's, elk herds or whatever it might be, right? We've heard these different pieces. We have the ability to make sure that that stuff is part of this plan.
Brian, I like that you have that confidence there, but Tahoma Terra was also master plan community and they didn't follow, and for whatever reason, the city did not stay on top of them doing what was supposed to be done. How are we going to make sure that when we have turnover and things like that, that what we say is going to happen is going to happen? That's my concern. Is Tahoma Terra was master plan, and how long did it take before they finally put something commercial up?
So, obviously, we can't account for turnover, right? Council changes seats every couple of years, staff can be done. I'm not going anywhere soon. Cody's not going anywhere soon. I guess I don't know how to answer specifically how we control that, but yes, ultimately it is up to the council on what they allow and not allow to be built in these master plans, in these communities. And so if you look back at the original master plan for this 1,250 acres, it included 325 acres of open space, right? Trails. Some of it was wetlands. Some of the things was unbuildable properties. Part of their feasibility they're looking at right now is, does that still exist? Are they wider? Are those wetlands bigger? Are the buffers bigger? Right? So, because if we go to market this property, we need to be able to market it as there's 500 acres of unusable wetlands, right? Or there's 300 acres. And so they're talking about having, people that do aerial photos of these things. That's what we're talking about right now, is to what exactly are we marketing and what could you build there? The road, we were calculating the other day, punching the southern loop all the way through 507. How many acres does that take up? Right? I think we come up with 24 acres?
Yeah.
Not our property.
Yeah,
that's at the other property that we would need to obtain right away, at least 24, 25 acres just to put this, this loop through that land. And so I don't know that I can answer what you're saying correctly, because it is going to be up to council what they allow and not allow to be built as time allows, because you're right. This is a 20+ year project at probably minimum before we would see this entire thing built out, and none of us will more than likely be here.
I might.
During that, unless you have a better answer for that.
No, I think you hit it right on the head. And the one thing is, just like before, right? Times change, council changes. Who knows what new technology comes out, and who knows what new things happen that might change how things build. Back then it was big, wide open, single family homes, and you want townhouses. Now it's, hey, let's cram more people in together and build apartments. So things change and people's visions change of what the world should look like. So you're right. It is hard to determine that, but that's the ultimate control is with whatever the council is at the time.
Tracy, you had a question, comment?
Just a comment. I mean, it was simple. You were asking, why did this go this way? Well, the economy dried up. The Washington State changed their regulations. As you mentioned, councils change, perspectives change. And, what we're required to do with it, with an area and how many houses we're supposed to put in it now is, significantly different than what was going on when that master plan went in. And, unfortunately, I agree with you. I think we should have stuck with the plan, but Washington State feels differently, and here we are.
And, I understand that, but as Administrator Stansel put it, they will come to us with what's going to be put in there. I don't ever recall Tahoma Terra, the developer, ever coming into a city council meeting and saying, this is what I'm about to do with the next 10 acres.
They did come through. I don't know which phase of it, but Tahoma Terra has definitely been here with their plans when they were first building throughout. I think it was probably before I was, but even as a house council member, Tracy before that, I'm sure he remembered them coming in as well.
And
But
those times they also went through foreclosure. And
Yeah.
New
The economy.
developer.
yeah, 2008.
They were telling us what was going on, but the regulations changed, the requirements changed. What the state required them to do changed, which, enhanced the problem we were already having, that the economy wasn't doing so great.
As I said, the concerns I hear from the community members that I've been in discussions with, their concern is, what's going to happen? And I just want to make sure that somehow we've got that. I don't want to say, hey, every time they come to decide to do something with 10 acres or whatever, they have to come before the council. And then all of a sudden what happened with Tahoma Terra, they're not coming through, or it's not being as well advertised and such.
And part of the process is that if we decide to market it and we're marketing these two master plan developers, right? And so the idea, at least what I would envision, is that we have input in selecting the right for people to do what we want to do, right? So we express those concerns with those folks and say, listen, we love the end game idea, but for 20 years, we don't want just rooftops, right? We need a blend of parks. We need a blend of schools. We need a blend of everything, because an entire concept of a master plan community is just make it a somewhat inclusive community. The idea is that we don't have to travel 20 miles to go to the grocery store, and that you can walk to the store, and kids can walk to school or use golf cart paths, to get there. And so the idea of creating almost a new community that we're not driving. It's not about getting in your car to have to go to A, B, and C. It's, from what our conversations have been with Kidder Matthews, they talk a lot about some of these other master plans that have been built recently. Tahali up in Bonnie Lake, I believe it is. It's Ording, Bonnie Lake area. They were heavily involved in that piece. I haven't been to Tahali. Some people have been there and talk about it. I guess it's pretty phenomenal how it's laid out and structured. But anyway, so we'll be able to have input on that. And I guess what I want to say is that whatever input we get from the community, because we want that input, and we're going to hopefully get more input, we're not done on the 27th with community input. This is just one phase of, they're going to come and say, these are some ideas you could choose to market it, not market it, try to choose to buy the entire 150 and market it all at once. There's different advantages and disadvantages to both. But once we decide to do that, the ongoing public transparency piece is just getting started, right? So it's not done. I don't want anybody to think on the 27th, they're going to come in here with this detailed, what's going in this 1,250 acres.
And as Scott said earlier, ultimately, the decision is with council. How it lays out, if we want to rezone, that's up to you. That's if you want more commercial on there, right? If that's your priority, put it out there, and then, that's what council will vote on. There's a lot, it's a huge, long process. As you said, we're going to get a lot more public input starting with next week. It's going to really be a kickoff of it, but this isn't going to happen tomorrow. It's just a long process. We're not going to just do this overnight and pull a fast one on the public or anything like that. Will be lots of outreach. Yeah.
I thought Kidder Matthews was the developer, the master developer.
No,
They're consultants.
they're not. No.
They're an in-between step.
They're basically the consulting marketing group. So they will determine how we want to market it. You will determine how you want to market it based on their options they'll give you.
They'll give recommendations.
They'll give recommendations, and then they will market it for us for whether we're going to target the entire 1250, we're going to target 640, whatever that might look like. That's what they will do.
And that's all your decision.
For the 14th for the open house, there's going to be no renderings really of any kind of any ideas for the people to see. And will we at least be able to find, like delineate the wetlands, or will be anything delineated on any kind of map for the public?
We'll have, do you want to, Cody?
And will there be like sticky notes available for people, or how are you going to get
Yeah, we're definitely going to do the sticky note thing where people can comment and put.
what they want in writing?
Yep.
What about for, about rendering stuff like that? Is there, will we have the old map, the original? I think at the very least, we should probably have the poster of the original master plan community where we're at. Stuff like
Yeah, so there will be, there'll be some like rendering of where the roadway will be. So where you'll see the loop, so there'll be feedback on that. You'll be able to see some of the layouts of like wetlands on that rendering. There'll be the property layout of where the property is.
Accurate wetlands.
So the problem with the old rendering is the old rendering included 1,250 acres. We don't have access to the 1,250 acres. So I would prefer not to show the master plan at this point of the 1,250 acres because we don't know that that's an option for us yet. Right now, ours is just the 640 piece. So if we just did a master plan on our 640, it looks drastically different than the 1,250 would look. So that'd be my thing is unless we had an agreement or arrangement and we already decided we're going to market the whole 1,250 and we've reached an arrangement with the owners, I think that would be fantastic to show what we originally had up there. And then it's easy to tweak this or add this. But at this point in time, we don't have access to control what happens on that 600.
The 300 acres of wetland was on our 640, wasn't it?
No.
It might not necessarily. I think it goes over both properties, but to Todd's point, we don't know if that's what it's going to look like because it's just our 640 rather than the whole thing. I still think there is value in showing what it originally was, just so folks can see this is what the original plan was. We're going to switch to just whatever your suggestions are as the public to the 640 acres. But yeah, I get your concerns on. We don't know what council's going to decide on, whether it's the whole area or just
Well,
ours.
the 640 we have, the geodata should have a relatively recent wetland update, just so, because it's one thing to say, here's our 640, but oh yeah, half of it's wetland. So now you have to recompensate for what you think.
I don't know if we have access to it, so new rendering though.
And it's more of on the other property, the wetland.
Remember that half was on ours, though. With the half.
It's on both, but.
Yeah, and the problem is, the one most recent we have is the 2007 wetland studies, which wetlands change.
Yeah.
Buffers change. That's part of what Kidder Matthews is doing, is trying to find out, are those wetlands still legitimate? Are they changed? Are they less? So there is wetlands on the property.
We'll have some rendering, whether it's just the bypass overlay on it or whether it's the original, we'll have something for folks to look at though. But
Something to see, yeah. Okay.
But there are some exciting options that will be coming forward to you. So it's good stuff.
And a lot of that's also to get feedback from the public, what they want to see there and whatnot.
And will you advertise a way for people that can't come in person? Because I get that online a lot, like, oh, we don't have time to come in person. So they can make comments in your new section.
Yeah, and it gives my number, gives my email. Yeah, it gives frequently asked questions on what is it, what are we doing, blah, blah, blah. And as we get questions in on any of the projects that are listed there, if we get a common enough question, we will go in and just add that to the frequently asked questions. Yep.
Anything else we move on? All right, mayor's report. Scott said August 14th, we're having our open house. It'll be a good opportunity for the public to go in and take a look at what projects we have going on in the city and get feedback on them, what they want to see, stuff like that. It's going to be kind of a walk through, so you don't have to, they'll have their own static presentations rather than just one big presentation where someone's talking at you. You can go at your own pace throughout it. It starts at 6 o'clock. Community center next week, August 14th. And I think we got like 8 or 10 projects or so that we're talking about, or 7, 10 projects. The big ones, roundabouts, bypass, 640 acres, things like that. Today's primary, you still got like less than an hour if you haven't turned your ballot in. You should do that. And we'll see tomorrow or later today what some of those early results are. National Night Out, thank you for those that were attending a little bit earlier. It was a great event held to celebrate our law enforcement and those who serve and protect us here in our community. So thank you all for being there, for whoever showed up, and thank you for folks protecting our community. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report. Let's do some council member initiatives. Is there anyone that has anything? Yes, sir.
I was hoping maybe we could start maybe having some conversations about, maybe, and I know it's a big conversation, but I think it's something that I think we can do if we start talking about a pool. Not a pool that's owned or ran by anybody else, but our own municipal pool. And somehow I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think that even based off of the gentleman that came in to explain to us why we were in a position with our credit rating and everything along those lines to do it initially looked like the direction. I think that those are feasible opportunities and pathways for us to consider doing this on a scale that I think that I think would satisfy this community.
Okay, we can have that conversation. We'll tee it up for a study session coming up. I think the biggest thing that we found in the past was just the insurance and the cost of the operating costs of it. The capital costs would be similar, probably smaller if we just do just a pool, but it's still going to be a large capital cost for it. Construction.
I've got a lot of great ideas as far as methods in which we can offset a lot of this stuff and routes we can go that makes it appealing to a whole group, whole different sets of generations of people.
Talking about that, didn't we have a committee that started to look into like the why possibility, et cetera, et cetera? Wasn't there a committee already doing that? What happened to the committee?
Maybe, there was an exploratory committee on it. We talked about a lot of the similar options, but it was mainly regarding the why.
But couldn't that same group maybe do the same thing?
Possibly, but I think.
I was asking that we started figuring out what we can do and if it's even worth us pursuing, which I truly believe that it is. And I think that I think we get a lot of positive feedback from positive affirmation from the community.
Yeah, I'm open if there's a way we can fund and operate a pool, even with municipality. It's usually the cost, it's the biggest issue, but we can absolutely have a conversation and talk about if it's third party would run it, if we would run internally.
I think we just partner with the Pines.
Yeah. Let's probably gonna be January, February in that time frame. Try to do it. I like to see what the school levy. I think a lot of people would want to see kind of what happens with that. But then, let's start those conversations up at that point, and we'll put in our long range list to add. And let's do February, March timeframe study session. Sound good?
Very good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Right.
Director Colton, Administrator Stansel, I love the projects page. Is it possible, because you just have the ones that are being done right now, is it possible to add a link of all the other projects that are kind of like waiting for either funding or something like that so that we can get input from the community? You may all of a sudden find out that somebody says, we really need to start working on this, and that will help us prioritize as we work with our STIPs and all the other wonderful things we're supposed to do. Is there a way you can do that?
So like projects that maybe will be coming to council for approval?
There's that.
Long-term projects on there. We can put some on.
Yeah, as I said, it's that wonderful spreadsheet that says there's like 20 projects there. Not all of them are being started, not even are being funded. They're just, hey, these are things we need to do. I just think it might be really nice to have on there so that then if all of a sudden a large majority are emailing you saying, hey, can we get started on this? Then it comes down to, maybe we need to adjust funding a little bit or something.
Like your Amazon shopping cart, it just sits there until you're ready to buy.
Yeah. So I just want to know if that could be done.
We'll discuss it. Anything else?
Painting lines, a lot of complaints about, especially over there by Chevron, not being able to see some of the street lines and, you know, turn lanes and such and all that.
On the state route or on
Our roads.
Our roads.
Mhm.
I think the best way would probably do a request.
Yeah, do a report of problem. So the one we've gotten a couple times, and I think we're just gonna do some temp lines, is Walmart. The state's coming in to rip it up, but we'll put some temp lines down. There's this temp paint you can put down that's lasts about a year, which is about when they'll rip it up. So, but if you have one, just do a report of problem, and we'll have Thurston County Striping comes out once a year in September-ish timeframe, and we hit a bunch of stuff up when they come out. We have a tiny striping machine for parking lots, but not for big roads. So put it on there.
There with
Trev, you want me to get it?
Yeah, let's get it.
I got a striping machine.
Anything else? All right, we are adjourned. It's a study session.